Blog Talk Radio.
It's 100% entertainment, 100% electricity, 100%
Pipebomb Radio with your host, Felix Olmedo.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man.
And Austin James.
That's the bottom line. From stone to stone.
Welcome, everybody, to Pipebomb Radio tonight on this Tuesday evening. You know, how apropos is it that we actually have the man himself who does the introductions to each of our shows on the A show, Pipebomb Radio. We have, of course, Austin here, and as I mentioned, of course, the man who does the introductions, the one and only Nate Milton. How you doing, Nate?
I'm doing good, brothers. Glad to be here on Pipebomb Radio. Looking forward to tonight.
Amen to that. Austin, as always, how you doing, pal?
Absolutely phenomenal. Saying I'm doing good is, you know, if I would be saying good, everybody says that I have to change it up once in a while. So I'm doing phenomenal.
I've known you for over the last 18 months, man, and I'm going to start calling you the phenomenal one because that is the way you answer how you doing every time anybody asks you how you doing. I'm phenomenal.
You know, we can't go with that, the phenomenal one, because, you know, AJ Styles has that, but you can say the absolutely phenomenal one, or sensationally phenomenal. Maybe put a few synonyms that, you know, change up from time to time when you say that. I wouldn't mind.
You know, hey, whatever works. Whatever goes with what everybody wants. They probably put hashtag incredibly phenomenal Austin. I'm about to call you AJ. Hello. But it's going to be a fun show tonight. We've got the man in charge, the man who ran, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, because I've been known to speak sometimes wrong, but he took over Larry Sharp's Monster Factory. He is the head boss currently now. Danny Cage will be joining us tonight. Austin, tell us a little bit about Danny Cage.
Well, Danny Cage has been alongside Larry Sharp for the last, I say like 8 years, I think, or even maybe even longer. It's probably longer than that. But Larry Sharp is the guy who played in Monster Factory, and he trained, such names like The Big Show, Raven, who else? Trying to think of the names I put down today. D'Lo Brown, and so on.
You said Sheamus.
Raven, and then we go into the years where kind of Larry Sharp, you know, he didn't step down, but, you know, he kind of handed it over to Danny Cage, Blue Meanie, and to do the training for him. And Danny Cage came along and trained guys like Sheamus, for example, and so many others. I mean, I can't even go into detail because there's so many other people that you got a chance to train. Make them become like, you know, superstars. You know, Bret Titus. I can go on and on. And most recently, NXT's own Steve Keller, and you've probably seen him a few times on NXT within the last, you know, couple of months on the WWE Network, which is actually available for only $9.99 if you didn't get the memo. And
what's that price again, Austin?
I believe it's $9.99. Is that right, Nate?
I think so. I didn't know if I was watching Raw or a Herman Cain campaign speech with the $9.99.
But I mean, you know, Danny Cage is awesome. You know, he's been a professional wrestler for quite some time, and now he's being a trainer and leading the future generation of professional wrestling. And I'm going to really tell you something. Those guys in Monster Factory have a secret ingredient to making their wrestlers. That's why there's something going on in that factory that we don't know, and we're going to get the scoop tonight.
You know, and it's funny you should say that too, because I know there was a topic that got brought up in regards to Paul Heyman. If you have seen that, if you guys have not seen, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman DVD, you need to.
It's great.
Not only because the Monster Factory gets mentioned in there, but great story on well, you know what? He's really one of the more old school managers now, because he stood the test of time over the years, and he's evolved into, I mean, most people call him the Walrus. The voice behind the voice, or however he said that. I can't even remember how he said that for Punk. But the one in 21 in 1, I don't like admitting that. But
I like that. Well, Felix, I'm just saying, and people always criticize me for this. I'm like, Paul Heyman is my favorite manager. To be honest, he is, because managers have led their guys to win, multiple championship titles and reigns that last, quite some time if they're good at their job, right? But Paul Heyman did something that no other manager in history has been able to do, and at least stand by the guy who did it. At the end, you might have heard about this, Felix and Nate. It actually happened at WrestleMania 30. Brock Lesnar defeated The Undertaker for his WrestleMania 21-0 streak, and now it's 21-1, right? And Paul Heyman was actually right beside him while he did that. So, and I haven't seen any other managers do that in ever. So if you have any secrets that maybe Hornswoggle was into the ring for one of the other matches, let me know.
I still don't think that happened, guys. I'm still, it's still a dream to me. I'm like that guy in the front row at WrestleMania. It didn't happen.
Thank you. I'm good with saying that he ended his career with 21-0, and I'm good with that. But Paul Heyman's face sold that whole match after the 1, 2, 3. That whole reaction he gave completely sold that finish. In just my opinion, he was utterly shocked, as the crowd was utterly shocked, and if that's what they were going for, mission accomplished.
Yeah, that's an understatement. When you say the crowd was shocked, I was there, and when I'm saying they were shocked, I mean, I think it's even above shocked. I mean, it's like what they're trying to what just happened. Because remember, if you're in recently when you watch the Undertaker matches, years before WrestleMania, he always kicks out, and then he eventually gets the win. And then you would expect him to kick out, and then out of his magical powers that he possesses, and he didn't. I'm like, huh.
Well, be that as it may, there's always going to be the only people that will really know for sure how that match was supposed to end: Vince, Undertaker, Brock. Maybe not even Brock, maybe just Vince and Undertaker. Everybody's going to have their own theories as to who really gave permission and blah, blah, blah. It is what it is. Do I like it? No. I accept it, and I've moved on. And I know Austin likes to bring it up and kind of rub my face in it a little bit, but, it is what it is. He gets his jollies, and, we move on.
Thank you.
Anyways, moving on. Moving on tonight, we will be contacting Danny Cage here in just about a minute or so. In fact, I could probably get a hold of him right now so we don't waste too much of his time. We'll have more time for discussion afterwards. Make sure, guys, if you want to call in and talk to Danny Cage tonight, make sure you call in at 347-202-0399, or you can send us a tweet at Pipebomb _ radio, and we will be more than happy to ask him any questions you got. With that being said, let's go ahead and place a call to Danny Cage.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Cage. This is Felix, Austin, and Nate with Pipebomb Radio. How you doing, sir?
What's up, brothers? We on the air right now?
We are on the air right now.
Awesome. How you guys doing?
We are doing great, sir. We are doing great. We thank you very much for joining us tonight. Just have some questions that we wanted to ask you about yourself, of course, and of course the Monster Factory and so forth. And we'll have some fun. I will kick it off and ask how you actually got familiar, how you got in contact with the Monster Factory. How did you hear about it? How did you end up getting involved with it?
Well, the Monster Factory popped up in New Jersey in the early 80s. I think it was 83. Buddy Rogers and Larry Sharp started it just to train Buddy Rogers' son. Larry Sharp let me know that Buddy, grabbed a hold of Larry and said, I like the way you train. You trained Kevin Von Erich and Tony Atlas and a couple other people, and I'd like you to work with my son. So Larry took that as a big compliment. He basically equated it to having Babe Ruth ask you to teach his son how to hit, because Larry was a huge Buddy Rogers fan, and he just said there's not many people I mark out for. I really don't. He said, but Buddy Rogers is one of them. And he's larger than life, and turned out Buddy Rogers' kid didn't even want to wrestle, so Buddy Rogers left the school to Larry. Larry named it the Monster Factory. Started popping up in all the newspapers around New Jersey. I guess I was like around 12 years old, or 13 years old in 85 or 86 when I was in the newspaper, and I remember it was a picture of Raven, who then was Scotty the Body, and I think there was a couple pictures of some other guys in the paper, and just talking about the Monster Effect, and of course Bam Bam Bigelow, and it just was always in my mind. I was always a wrestling fan, and from day one when I started watching it, I always wanted to be a wrestler. Would even study match tapes, read books on it, magazines, everything I get a hold of. You know, back in the 80s there was no internet, so everything was tape trading and going to the newsstand and buying new magazines and back issues and just learning the history of wrestling. And finally in 94, graduated high school in 92, did some odd jobs, and my dad was like, you know, I want you to go to college. I was like, no, I really don't want to. I want to be a pro wrestler. And he's like, well, that's not a career. You can't do anything. There's no future in that, so I'll pay for you to go to college. I said, well, why don't you just pay for me to go to wrestling school? It's a lot cheaper than colleges. Because it's not. It was $3,500, and college was like $16,000-$20,000 a year. So he said, all right, I'll make you a deal. You come move to Florida. You get in shape. You show me that you want to do it. And I was already in good shape. I wrestled amateur in high school. That was the first thing I did as soon as I realized I wanted to be a wrestler. I went and started wrestling amateur, which ironically, you know, I come to find out that that's what Larry's advice he got from Red Barry when he was like 8 years old. He said, if you want to be a pro wrestler, get an amateur experience. So it's kind of weird how me and Larry paralleled with getting the amateur experience, because you don't believe how many people walk in the doors of the Monster Factory and they say, I always wanted to be a wrestler my whole life. I said, did you wrestle amateur? And they say, no. I don't understand that. But anyway, so I went and I moved to Florida, and I got in great shape. I left my girlfriend of a couple of years, and there was no internet then, no cell phones, nothing. So I just picked up, left, and said, you know, write me. I'll be home in a couple of months. Stayed there for like 6 months. Came home, went to the Monster Factory. The Headbangers put me through my tryout in 94. It was Chaz and Glenn were there, Frank Finnegan, a couple other guys. And went through the tryout, and like I always say, like, you know, not to put myself over or anything, but like I just remember doing it and it feeling so easy, so natural, to the point where when I was running the ropes, they were dropping down in front of me, and I was already the second or third time hitting the ropes, I was able to be coordinated enough and to function and to not panic and know what to do when I was doing the drop down. So Larry called me in the office and said, when do you want to start? And I said, I'll start your next training session. My dad's paying for it. And back then, a couple of years later, Larry went through a period where he was basically taking whoever wanted to come in, because the crop of wrestlers dried up since everybody opened a wrestling school. But back then, he was very selective. Stevie Richards came in the 90s, and Larry turned him down and said, you know, now you're not going to make it as a wrestler. So he wouldn't just take anybody. So it was, I didn't realize it until I left that, like, they didn't take everybody. So got home, called my dad and said, listen, I made it. I'm going to go train at the Monster Factory. I just need a check. And he goes, I'm not paying for that. I didn't think you'd make it. So that was a setback right there. I mean, I'm a 20-year-old man, just like sitting there. I can't believe my dad just did that to me. I mean, I don't know how anybody could do that to their son. So after that, I just floundered around for a couple of years, turned myself around, and moved to North Carolina, where I was a debt collector, I guess you could say, for somebody.
That must have been fun.
That's all we'll say. It was a debt collector for somebody, and I knew the guy fairly well. We grew up together in Jersey, and he moved to North Carolina, and he was doing some things there, and I never had to do anything, but just my reputation from him telling people stories and me being from New Jersey, when for some reason, like when you live in North Carolina and they say someone from Jersey's coming to get money from you, they get scared. So I never had to do anything. So I was down there and I bumped into a couple wrestlers and saw a couple shows when I was down there, and I was working the door as a bouncer. And I bumped into, like I was on a show. I wasn't on the show. I was watching the show, and when I was there, Joey Matthews was wrestling on it, the Hardys, some of the guys from Mean Street Posse, I think, was on it. This was before they made it. Who else was on it? Q-Ball Carmichael, and this guy named Toad. And I bumped into Toad when I was working the door, and I said, you know, they're like, yeah, this guy Danny, you know, he wants to be a wrestler. And they're like, well, he's like, why don't you? You look better than me. You're better looking than me. You got a better build than me, so I assume you're a better athlete than me. Why wouldn't you do it? And I couldn't give him a reason why not to. So we got some money together. I went home and walked right to the Monster Factory with $500 down and started training and had my first match only like a couple months in. And ironically, it was on a show where the Headbangers were there with Jim Cornette at Sterling High School for the Monster Factory. And I think it was, I want to say October of '98. And that's how everything started. And then do you want me to get into how I became the owner, or do you want to just ask a couple questions along the way?
Please continue. I mean, at this point, tell us how you became the owner, sure.
Yeah, I wrestled for a little bit here and there. Did some, you know, I had an opportunity to do like UFC. I didn't do it. I had the opportunity to do it. I didn't do it. It was crazy. This was back when it was insane. It was like you could rip digits. I think you could do everything other than eye gouge. You could punch in the balls if you wanted to. And they would contact different wrestling schools. And Larry knew I had amateur background, and I had already beat the crap out of somebody at a fitness expo who was this black belt guy. So Larry knew I could, you know, and I did it in front of everybody, which was awesome. But Larry liked to, he was like, hey, just go ahead and do it, Dan. And I go, well, what's the pay and what are the weight divisions? He goes, no weight divisions. And I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, dude, I'm like 195 pounds. I'm not getting in there with someone. And as I'm watching this, as I'm talking to Larry on CNN, there's like the famous scene with the UFC where like there's like this guy who looks like Abdul the Butcher, who's like 350 pounds, is running across the octagon at like this like skinny, tiny white guy and just mauling him into the corner. And like I'm watching that as I'm talking to Larry, and I was like, yeah, I think I'll pass on this, Larry. I'm not in the mood to go to UFC. I have no health insurance, no nothing. I was like, no. So I was like, all right, bud, you know, whatever. And we did some things along the way. You know, I did a couple of shows here and there. I wasn't too happy with the indie scene. I liked the business and loved the business itself. But I guess it's like once I got introduced to it and saw what it was like, it was almost like I was sick to be there, if that makes sense. Because you would just see, like, people just happy to be there. I guess, more or less being content, and I was never content. I wanted to be going somewhere and doing something, and I didn't know the path to take, and at the time Larry got cancer, so, like, somebody else was running everything, and Larry, they gave him 30 days to live, and I didn't know what to do. I mean, I was just devastated, and at the time I got a good paying union job, and I was making close to 6 figures at the age of 25. So I'm like, well, I'm not driving, 50 miles and killing myself for $20 pay. I was like, you're out of your freaking mind. And I was just a realist. I I deal in sustainability, and that is not sustainable. But what I was doing was sustainable so I could get to a different point in my life where I could make different decisions, whether it be behind the scenes in wrestling or something else. But it was not going to be as a pro wrestler because my body was already getting beat up, herniated discs, bone chips in the elbow, just numerous injuries, concussions. So Larry wound up making like this incredible recovery, like out of nowhere, like supposedly like this form of leukemia he had was like so rare, like they gave him like 30 days to live. Like they just literally put him in like the wing in the hospital that they would call like the Walking Dead, because like everybody dies there. And like 2-3 months later, like Larry's back and he's got a full head of hair. He's Larry again. And A&E Biography comes in and they're shooting a segment for A&E Biography for like all the wrestling. So we did like the introductions before all the things. Like I was the one for Owen Hart. Like you can see it on YouTube, and I'm in the background getting backdropped and thrown around and stuff like that. And it was just really cool. And at the time, like we got this, everybody wanted to do like an urban wrestling federation. And I remember they had like this urban wrestling federation contact Larry about, holding them the tryouts there for it. And everybody there was a minority other than like me and 2 other students. So I'm like, well, I don't think we're getting in this thing. But they wanted me, and they told Larry, like Larry came to me, and he goes, Dan, they're very interested in you, and they want to offer you a contract to go to L.A. So I said, really? And I'm all excited. And then Larry just calms me down and just goes, but you wouldn't leave your good-paying union job to move to L.A. for $50,000 a year for a federation that could fold in 3 months, would you? And I'm like, no. He goes, all right, good. I'll tell him you're not interested. So I didn't realize it, but then listen, here's the great part about it. Like people say stuff about like, carnies and the old school guys. Like Larry would have got a finder's fee for having me sign. So we got a couple $grand. But what happened is that federation actually closed down in a couple months.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I didn't realize it until, like, you read, like, one of the, Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Like, Larry didn't even know, because Larry don't keep up on that crap. Larry didn't even watch wrestling back then. But I went to him and I said, listen, the federation closed down. He goes, well, I guess I know what the hell I'm talking about, don't I? But he could have, easily just took the couple grand. I went and moved there, came back after a couple months after a phone and said, well, that's the breaks, kid, that's the business. But he didn't. So I always remembered that. And my body got real bad moving a couple years forward. Like 2005, it was really bad, my back and stuff like that. And what had happened was kind of like my last match. Still stayed in contact with Larry once in a while. I'd call him up or see him. But in like 2011, I had a chance to help him out a little bit. And he had a couple guys doing his training there, and he wanted to see about going in a different direction. And he knew me and trusted me. So he's like, why don't you help me out doing this and this? So I started throwing some ideas around at him. And I was like, I saw like the website, and they didn't even have a Facebook, and they didn't have this, and they didn't have that. So I just started doing all that and, dumping my own money into running the website and getting flyers made and advertisements and banners and all this stuff. And did that for about like a year, handled all the paperwork, scheduling birthday parties, promoting stuff, setting up the student tryouts, you name it, got us new students, to the point where Larry just all of a sudden just saw everything turning around and saw the energy I had, and he just said to me, he goes, why don't you do me a favor? And I said, what? And he goes, why don't you just put it all in your name? He's like, it's going to be yours. I couldn't be more happy. He's like, you're doing it exactly how I would have done it. He's like, you were me 20 years ago, but with even more energy. So that was very flattering, and I told him, I said, but you can't go anywhere yet. I was like, because no one knows who the hell I am. I go, I can't just be like the guy who runs the Monster Factory with no name. So you're going to have to kind of like put me over a little bit and kind of do the job eventually, Timmy, and, you know, tell everybody how great I am or something. And he was just like, no, everybody knows you. You're fine. I'm like, well, no, it's not really that way. But, you know, a couple of the students I got us. One of them got a tryout at NXT, 20 matches in and got a contract. So that helped out the cloud a little bit. And Larry just said, I think it's time for me to move to Florida and be done. So he, a couple months ago, just said, can you do me a favor and get me a plane ticket? Send me to Florida. I said, you got it, brother. So that's where we're at today, man. But there's tons of stories along the way, but that was the Cliff Notes version.
Wow.
Oh, thank you.
That is an amazing story. Like, I mean, I knew stuff about you beforehand, but then you're bringing all this stuff in. I didn't even know that Buddy Rogers was the original, you know, before Larry Sharp with the Monster Factory.
Well, yeah, Larry and Buddy started it together. Buddy and Larry started together, and they just called it Wrestling School. They didn't even have it called the Monster Factory. It was just a wrestling school. And, yeah, they started it together.
And you mentioned how you were in high school. Now, throughout high school, besides wrestling, were you into any other sports?
Nope, I wrestled all year round. I would wrestle in tournaments in the summertime, and then the rest of the time I would just eat and work out. Like, I was obsessed with wrestling. I would study match tape, put it in slow motion, reenacting the moves. No, not backyard wrestling, but actually learning the chain wrestling. You know, learning the chain wrestling. Because I always explain to everybody, like everyone goes, oh, everybody backyard wrestled. I had no friends that liked pro wrestling. It was me alone. And I loved it. I loved it because what it got me was, it got me alone with my 500 hours of wrestling tapes. And when my parents would go out boozing or go out fighting or do whatever they were doing at the time, because I had a really kind of screwed up childhood, they would leave me alone and I would be in the house. They would give me like $20. They'd say, order pizza and whatever. And they'd be gone for sometimes 12 to 14 hours in the daytime. And my grandparents lived on the other side of the house in a duplex. So I would sit there and I would just watch match tape in slow motion, and I would reenact it in the living room. You know, then it got to the point where I was practicing drop kicks on my parents' bed, kicking the ceiling fan, you know, doing everything I could to learn wrestling, you know, plus doing the amateur wrestling. I was reading script writing books, doing practice writing up things, putting together shows, writing down, you know, how the card would go and who would face who, and being like a you know, a booker. But, you know, as a 12-year-old kid, of course, it's Hulk Hogan versus Roddy Piper every show and whatever. But that's what you know, that's what I did.
Okay.
That's insane, because that kind of reminds me of how I am, because I can care less about any parties that's going on or any of the stuff that people are doing outside of it. And because wrestling has always been, you know, been there, you know, depending on whatever, on tape, on TV, whatever, that's always been here for me. When nothing else is ever, that's always been there. And I love wrestling for that reason. It just, what you're talking about, it really relates with me a lot.
Well, how old are you?
I'm 17.
All right. Are you a fan? Are you a student? What are you?
I'm kind of like I'm working, like putting up the rings and stuff, the merchandise, and promoting different things, graphic design.
Yeah, you gotta be to the point where you're not so critical of it. Here's my advice to you. You're 17, you're young. Don't be so critical of it because you really don't know anything yet. What I would say is be a fan, but a student. That's what you want to be, a fan. Because, I mean, I'm still a fan. I'm still a mark. I love pro wrestling. I love getting caught up in it. When someone becomes an actor, they don't all of a sudden then hate movies. They still watch movies. They still go to the movies. So I was in the wrestling business. I became a wrestler. I now train people. It doesn't mean I now hate it and I have to belittle it to feel better about myself. You have to study it. You're constantly learning things. My biggest advice to you would be getting a script writing book and start doing improv. That helped me out immensely.
Wow, that's actually a good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, Mr. Cage, growing up as a wrestling fan, who were some of your favorite stars watching as you were watching as a young child? And did you have any favorite managers, valets that you really, were some of your favorites?
My favorite wrestler of all time was probably Stan Hansen.
Wow, nice choice.
I just love Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody because when they got in there, it looked like they were going to kill somebody. But at the same time, I loved Ricky Steamboat's technical prowess. I loved Brad Rangans because he was an amateur wrestler. I loved the Lightning Kid because he was a skinny kid like me. So I loved everybody for every reason. But, I met Stan Hansen for the first time last year. I've met Bruno Sammartino. I've had phone conversations with Stone Cold, just talking as friends. Been with, J.J. Dillon, hung out with him. You name it, I've hung out with him. Seen it, done everything. But when I met Stan Hansen, Blue Meanie, I'll tell you the story if you ever get him on here or whatever. But Blue Meanie's at the table, and I'm hanging out with him talking. And I heard someone say they're Stan Hansen, and my face lit up like a 9-year-old kid, and I just, threw everything on the table that was in my hands, and I ran over and I, threw my phone to my buddy, and I was just get a picture with me and Mr. Hansen, and, it's on the wall, and, my face is lit up, and Larry always gets a kick out. He goes, look at you, look at that face on you. He's like, look at you, you mark, and I go, I don't care, I am. I'm a mark. I was, and then I started talking to him like I was a fan. I didn't care. I was like, man, I loved your promos when you used to, be spitting out the tobacco and you're yelling about Lex Luger and this is going nuts and it's going all over your stomach and you're just yelling in the camera. And he was, he wasn't like, oh, just shut up, kid. He was just like, we just started talking about, his times working for WCW and how rough it was and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool.
Now, Danny, one of the things that I hear when I hear you talk about, your relationship with Larry over the years is respect and trust.
Mm-hmm.
That's what really, really comes through to me. And, just as a fan, you hear horror stories all the time about, young guys or young girls signing up to wrestling schools and they get taken advantage of. As somebody that is an owner and a trainer at the Monster Factory, what would be some tips that you would give, some advice to anybody out there listening that, they're a young kid, they want to get into this business, and, you want them to come in with their eyes open because this is a great business, but it can also be a shady business.
Yeah, what I do is, number one, when anyone comes when you come in, if you go somewhere, as I'm just giving advice, say if you're located in East Jabip and you can't make it to the Monster Factory and you're going to go someplace. Warning signs would be this. Number one, look to see what's on the walls. Look to see if it looks like the building has some roots laid down. You don't want to be in a building where all there is a ring. It has to look like it's been lived in, It's kind of like if you went to visit someone's house and they're like, yeah, we lived here for a long time. And there's no pictures on the wall, and there's no curtains, and there's no nothing, you know something's wrong with that house, and they either just moved in or they're about to get the hell out. So be wary of that. Also, be wary of the sales pitch. I never try to tell anybody anything. I don't, tickle anybody's ass with a feather on the way in the door. They walk in the door and they're basically sitting on the bench and waiting almost the entire training session until they get in the ring for their tryout. I also charge for a tryout. Reason being is we're getting to the point where people are just trying out just so they could knock something off their bucket list. Because I would, one night I had 3 people come in, and 2 of them were half decent, and the other one was just horrible. And I said, I'm not interested in you. I was like, but you 2, I would consider training you. When do you want to start? And they said, oh well, no, we don't even want to train. We just wanted to try it.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't have time for that. Right now we have about 20 students, and we're constantly, the Monster Factory is a lifetime membership. That was one thing that Larry started years ago, and I continued it. The price has remained the same, I think, for the better part of the 30 years it's opened. When I came for my tryout in 94, it was $3,500, and it's $3,500 to this day. Right now we have a building right now in Paulsboro, which is probably the nicest Monster Factory we've ever had. Kevin Kelly was there, and he walked in, and he just goes, this is like a mini NXT. We have a camera over the ring. We have a camera over the wrestling side of the room. We have amateur mats down. And then we have a camera in the weight room. We have 3 different sections. We have a 300-pound truck tire. We have a cross-training section, a full weight room, showers, bathrooms, air conditioning, sound system, everything you can name, we have it. And the entire floor is amateur mats from one end to the other, like wall-to-wall carpeting. So when you walk in there, you're walking on amateur mats the entire time. But getting back to what to be wary of, the sales pitch, someone telling you they're this or that. Also, when you get the tryout and you're somewhere else, if they start getting you in the ring and beating the crap out of you, get out of there. Just get out of there. This is 2014. This is not, a lot of people will say, like, oh, it's paying your dues, you get beat up. No. When someone comes to our wrestling school, you treat that person like they're an investment. You wouldn't beat up an investment. You wouldn't trash an investment. If you get, if you get a new car, you don't take it out and just beat the crap out of it. No, you have to take care of it, let it get some miles. Then maybe later, then you can push it to the limit. There's a lot out there that will just try to beat the crap out of new guys to make a point. We don't even let you get in the ring until about 3 weeks to a month in. Usually what it entails is you come in, you take a couple bumps, you get out of the ring, and then you're working lockups, chain wrestling, headlocks, stuff like that, just basic stand-up. And then, you're cleaning up, taking out the trash, cleaning up the building, you're paying attention, you're watching everybody else. That goes on for about a month. So if they don't have that, we don't even allow, our students to go to the top rope during shows. It's unnecessary. Nobody, WWE doesn't sign people, and Ring of Honor doesn't go, he does this real cool thing. Can't wrestle worth a lick, but he does this real cool thing off the top rope, so I want him. That's not the way it works. That's not the way it works. So that's just some of the things. Also, people, I guess, I don't know. If anybody says will let you train at their building for only a couple dollars, you get what you pay for. For a while, we were letting different people come in who weren't affiliated with the Monster Factory, I'd say, yeah, come on in for a day or two, or pay mat fees. I don't even allow that anymore. I'll make an exception, but unless you wrestle for us, there's not a chance you're walking in the building and even getting in a ring and working out unless you're, you know, somebody who's been there, done that, or if you're joining. Because like I said, we got 20 students. I don't need you to, you know, come in and now basically I am teaching you for free. I'm not giving you a Harvard education for $20 a day. It's not happening.
That's very good. And at this point, do you guys have some upcoming, I read something where you guys have an upcoming seminar, or if you probably just had one, excuse me, but you have any upcoming shows, anything coming up?
Yeah, we always have stuff going down. We just had Joel Gertner in. We always bring in seminars, and here's why. Number one, we don't know it all. Nobody does. That's why people who go and get that, like I say, Harvard education, they still go to, you know, a TED's talk, or they go somewhere else for a lecture or a seminar or anything, because you're not going to learn everything. So we constantly bring in them. And also what it does is we tend to bring in pretty big-name people, and what they're saying is stuff very similar, or if not exactly what we have said. So it kind of validates what we said, but, you know, kind of like if your mom and dad are telling you something, you're like, yeah, whatever. And then, like, the cool kid on the street says it, you're like, oh, well, man, maybe mom and dad were right. I had no clue. So that helps out a lot. So we just had Joel Gertner in. We have Les Thatcher coming in. Now, people pass this up. This is why the Monster Factory is unique, and people will, you know, give me grief for it, but I am offering them to stay at the Monster Factory because I think everybody should have an opportunity to get to one of these seminars, the Les Thatcher seminars, or, you know, if we work with somebody else in the future and we have a 3-day seminar. What kills you is, number one, the cost is only $150, and that's fine. That, you know, a lot of people can't afford that. But then if you come from out of state for a 3-day seminar, you now have to get a hotel room for 3 days. We're allowing people to stay at the Monster Factory in our air-conditioning building with showers, with lodging for the entire 3 days. So we're basically all just going to camp there. So for free. So if people have excuses why they can't do it, it's because they don't want to do it. You know, that there's that famous saying, if it's important to you, you'll find a way. If it's not, you'll find an excuse. It's that simple. $150 to train for 3 days with Les Thatcher at the Monster Factory, and you pass that up, you're insane. You're insane.
Amen to that.
And then we got Rip Rogers coming in December.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I love Rip Rogers. Big fan of Rip Rogers.
Yeah, and that got hooked up through a couple different people. You know, there was Cliff Compton, who I trained with. We broke in together the same year at the Monster Factory, and a couple other guys hit me up on Facebook about it, and they put me in touch with them, and to the point where Rip is just like, yeah, I don't need a hotel. Just put me up at your house and feed me. I'll be good. I'm like, you got it, man. We'll just hang out and bullshit. That'd be great. So I'm looking forward to that, man. He just got his hips replaced. So hit up his Twitter, guys, and, you know, he right now, like, you know, the Monster Factory donated him some money because, you know, he had to get his hips replaced. He got in an accident years ago and got hit by a car, actually. So he had to get both hips replaced. So right now he is not able to do all his seminars and all that stuff. So a lot of people donated money to him. So hit him up on Twitter and say hi to him, man. He's the best.
Now, you guys actually have Gerald Briscoe come in once or twice a year. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, what he's there to do?
Gerald Briscoe, that all started. Wait one second.
Wow, this It's been a lot of fun, hey guys.
Most definitely.
Absolutely, yeah, most definitely. It's a great look into I know a lot of folks out there are interested in this, and I think Dan's giving you a little bit of that Harvard education for free on the show tonight.
Hey, I don't think I could put it any better myself. That's a great way to analyze that.
Without a doubt. I mean, Monster Factory in New Jersey, I know you can actually go to the Monster Factory. It's monsterfactory.com. And check out all the details. I mean, they're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, there's no reason.
They are everywhere. You're right. Actually, I didn't know that at first until I did some investigations and,
sorry, guys. You there?
No worries. Yeah, we're still here.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just had something going on down in front of my house. I didn't know if someone got in an accident or what. So I was trying to know. Yeah. There was just a bunch of lights out in front of my house, so I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on while remaining calm. So I put it on mute and yelled to my wife and all that stuff.
Not a problem. We appreciate you checking back in with us.
And it's not monsterfactory.com. It's monsterfactory.org.
I lied.
Get it right, Austin.
You slacker.
Gerald Briscoe. He's actually
we're talking about that.
Yeah.
What happened was I like to network with different people, and as soon as I took the Monster Factory over, I started networking with different people on Twitter. Like I said, nobody knows who the hell I am. I only have like 1,400 followers. Like, no one knows who I am. And when I started talking to Gerald, I had like 600. But we started talking on Twitter about amateur wrestling and different stuff like that. And suddenly, I just said, hey, man, I messaged him because he started following me. And I said, what would it take to get you to the Monster Factory? So he texted me, or he sent me his number, and he said, call me and we'll arrange something. So I called him up and we talked for a while, and, Gerald's, old Southern boy, just like basically, what are you looking at? What do you want to get out of this? I said, well, I think there's some guys you could use there. Plus, it would be great for you to do a seminar. So he came in and we did a great seminar. It was had like 30 or 40 people there. It was an all-day event. Plus we had the show. And he submitted a couple names for NXT, and one of them got the tryout, went to the tryout, and just absolutely killed it. And he continues to kill it to this day. He's wrestling now as Steven Cutler. But he had 20 matches under his belt for us. He was one of my first students I ever had. And it was
like
just so cool. What's that?
Looking like the Proud Papa.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked 3 times today. He calls me every single day, looking for different advice. We'll go over promo ideas. I'll even write him some stuff. He'll shoot some stuff my way. Plus, I gave him access to our security cameras so he can watch our training, and he can tell the kids different things to work on as we're going through training. It's just, he's everything you could ask for in a student. So then, it's going to be a yearly thing now where Joe comes in to take a look at guys. This year, I don't know if he's found anybody. He said, there's a lot of people who are close, but he said there's just, a couple of people that, got to tweak this here or there before he'll put a stamp on them, because he just doesn't put a stamp on anybody, like he recruited Brock Lesnar. He's got a reputation for not finding crap. So,
exactly.
It's got to be the best of the best. It doesn't mean they can't make it or they won't make it. It just means he's not going to get them a tryout at NXT.
So, I mean, it kind of seems like WWE is hiring more the guys who wrestled in collegiately in college, and it seems more like the people that are coming in, as of late at least. Do you think you have a better chance of actually getting signed to WWE by going?
Okay, little Padawan. Now, what makes you think that?
Well, there's like Jason Jordan. There's a number of wrestlers right now in NXT.
who's the number one face of NXT right now?
Maybe Sami Zayn.
Yeah, where'd he wrestle amateur?
He wrestled in college.
Yeah, wrestled in college, but he wasn't recruited out of college. He wasn't recruited. I wrestled amateur. I don't see me at NXT. We got a kid who's an Olympic alternate, who's a multi-time national champion, who wrestles for us. He didn't get recruited, and the kid cuts better promos than I've seen anybody on TV. I mean, if you're going to recruit somebody, I mean, put it this way: why wouldn't you recruit an amateur athlete? Because I'm sorry, the 17-year-old kid I'm talking to, do you want to be a wrestler?
Yes, sir.
You wrestle amateur?
No, but I do like jiu-jitsu and submission wrestling.
Why don't you wrestle amateur?
There's none around town. Home of Louisiana is vacant.
There's nothing there?
I promise you there's nothing.
So you're in great shape right now, right?
No, not the best, no. Yeah, no,
well, why wouldn't you be? I mean, these athletes that they recruit, they're in great shape. They have a passion. They show a track record of constantly putting in the hours and the time and all the dedication that it takes to be a WWE superstar. So now all they have to do is take that same dedication and technique and passion that they had for either football or collegiate wrestling or whatever they wanted, and now just say, we're going to throw that towards wrestling now. Because who's to say that person doesn't have great passion for pro wrestling? Because like I said, I loved pro wrestling. I went to wrestle amateur. Now all of a sudden they tell me you can go to the Olympics. Should I say, no way, I wouldn't be staying true. I should not try to go to the Olympics, and I should just go be a pro wrestler and make $20 a weekend? Or should I pursue that Olympic, goal, then get looked at by the WWE, and then they come to me and they say, do you ever think of being a pro wrestler? Well, absolutely. That's the only reason I'm amateur wrestling. Now, should I feel bad about that and say, well, the guy on the indies who said he always wanted to be a wrestler his entire life, but he's so out of shape that he has to wear a singlet to cover his belly, and he doesn't even have enough wherewithal to spend the proper money to get the proper gear. But he's hardcore because he's never trained a day in his life, but now he wants to be an indie wrestler. So that guy should get the look before someone who dedicated a better part of his life to actually being an athlete. I'll take the athlete before I'll take the guy who always wanted to be a wrestler his entire life. But just because you want to do something doesn't mean it's going to happen. You have to do it. And these athletes show a track record of being able to put in the hours and the dedication and actually having a plan of attack, as opposed to sitting on their couch and waiting for somebody to knock on the door and say, you want to be a wrestler? That ain't going to happen. And just because you have Facebook friends who call you a wrestler and you have a replica belt and you wear sweatpants to wrestle and you have cool music and a great entrance and everybody tells you how awesome you are and you have all the fans go, this is awesome, it doesn't mean you're a wrestler.
That is
sorry for the rant.
No.
No, that's what we want on this show. You know, we want the real deal. And that kind of leads me to my next question for you, and that is, what do you look for as a trainer? You know, is it something physical? Is it the ability to cut a good promo and connect with an audience? Is it an intangible? Is it that work ethic that you talked about? What is the main thing that you look for when you get your students?
It's a combo of everything. I'll tell you right now, we have a couple students, like I've turned down a couple students here and there. I'll turn down a student just for the sake of turning down a student if they're, for example, I kept in communication with this kid. He's 31 years old. He came to try it out, and he was in poor shape, and he had money to train, and to get started. And I said, no, I'm not interested. And I said, are you serious about it? I said, yes. I said, well, then you wouldn't look like this. So I said, here's what I'll do for you. In 2 months, I'm going to take a picture of you right now. In 2 months, you look like a wrestler, and you have the money in your hand to be a wrestler, and I will train you. But I'm not spending or wasting my time on you if you're not even going to take yourself seriously. If you can't invest in yourself, why the hell should I invest in you? I'd rather not make the $3,500 off of training you than take your $3,500 and have to push and pull you through this. And I know what's going to happen. You're going to make a couple payments, and then you're going to run away from it because you can't function, because you have no dedication. You think you walk into school, you do a cool move, and you get picked up. That's not what happens. So then what's going to happen is then I got to take you to small claims court, and then I got to chase you down for it. So now my time is money, and it's not worth $3,500. My time is worth way more than that, so I'm not going to bother training you. But anyway, this guy told me he's getting in shape, and he's due back in the middle of September. We'll see how it goes. I'm more interested in a guy who can listen, be respectful, and shows somewhat of a dedication to something. For example, we have one kid who was very good in school and was good in the arts, took acting classes, stuff like that. The kid can cut a promo and kills. Thing is, he's 19 years old, and that's actually not the bad thing. Problem is, he's not that athletic, not an athletic bone in his body. But he can cut a hell of a promo. He's 6'3", and he's only 19 years old. So I can make him into something. I'd rather have that than somebody 6'8", 290 pounds, 25 years old, with an attitude problem that he knows everything. Because there's no teaching that. You either are teachable, coachable, or you're not. I want somebody coachable. That's what the tryout we do. That's why I make them sit on that bench for so long. I want to see if they're going to get frustrated. I want to see if they're going to say, can we get this over with? I got to go somewhere. I want to see if they're going to get scared and leave. There's a reason I do everything, and there's a reason why I'm so good at it. And this is why. Everything is a test in wrestling. So the way you make them get in the ring. I might have a big guy. I did it earlier this year. I had a guy who was like 305 pounds. I go, all right, you're up, bitch. And I called him a bitch just to see how it react. And he goes, would you call me? I'll beat your ass. Now, number one, that's a test that you just failed. So I don't care what he did. I'm just not dealing with him. And it turns out he couldn't put up with it. His body was sore afterwards, and he never came back. And I always give everybody a warning. I go, I'm telling you now, when you wake up tomorrow, you are going to be sore. You are going to have bruises on your armpits from the ropes. You are going to feel like you're in an accident. You're not going to be able to pick your head up off the pillow. It's going to feel like you have whiplash. Oh, no, I trained in MMA. I'm like, okay, I'm telling you, this is the way you're going to feel. And without fail, every time they come back on Wednesday or whatever, it's, you're exactly right. I go, I know that.
What did you? I know you must have heard by now because it's been out for a while. But the Monster Factory was mentioned in the Paul Heyman DVD. Did you happen to watch that? And if so, what were your thoughts?
Yeah. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I saw that portion. The Blue Meanie lent me his, and I watched it because I haven't had a chance to buy it because I've been running around. But interesting thing is, I've never watched any documentaries or anything ever until the CM Punk documentary came out.
That was a good one, too.
I never watched any of them. And I'm 40 years old and a wrestling fan, but I just was never interested in that. I was more interested in the wrestling and all this. So it's cool to watch those and see what goes into it. But, that was very cool. Because, Larry was telling me years ago that, Heyman would come in and he would, just want to take pictures at the Monster Factory and do stuff. And then he became friends with Bigelow and all that. So it was very cool because, we didn't even get to mention Big Show's documentary, which was hilarious.
And working with all those guys, I mean, you guys I mean, did you expect them? Well, I don't know if you could say expect, but did you see the potential in them to be where they are today? I mean, obviously, if you didn't, you wouldn't have brought them in. But I mean, what were your thoughts seeing?
Well,
some of these guys
I wasn't there. I wasn't there with Big Show. I came there a couple years later as a student.
Okay.
Yeah, Big Show #1 came there. He was sponsored. He never paid for the school. He was sponsored, and people came and actually paid for him.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah, and he could do unbelievable things. Like I was talking to Chaz and Glenn, because they're the ones who trained them, the headbangers. Because, like, I always tell this to everybody. Like, Larry might not have trained you in particular at the Monster Factory, but the way you were trained is the Monster Factory way of training. For example, when you say, I'm a Marine, they don't go, who trained you? Was it Sergeant, Holka or Major Payne? Well, then you weren't, then you're not Marine. No, Marine training is Marine training, no matter who trained you. Same for the Monster Factory, because the way Glenn trained Big Show and the way he trained D-Lo is the way Larry trained Glenn. The same way when I trained Mike Spanos and Steve Cutler and all these other guys, and then while I'm doing, like, people don't understand, like, my job and Larry's job wasn't just to train them as wrestlers. I also have to do the website. I have to do the promotions. I have to do interviews like this. I have to set up appearances. I have to book the shows. I have to write the shows. I have to print the tickets. I do everything. I book the birthday parties. I do everything. So
not enough hours in the day to get all that done, but you do it.
Yeah, yeah. And I am awake for 19 hours a day. I sleep 5 hours a night. That's it. It is now midnight. I will not go to bed until 3 or 4, and I will be up at 6:30, 7 o'clock tomorrow. That's just the way it is. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I love it. But the thing is, I can't be in that ring with you every single minute of every day. But with having the Blue Meanie in, he's in on Wednesdays. Bill Wiles, who was in ECW, he trained at the Monster Factory. We all train the guys the same way. And that's just the way it is. It's the Monster Factory training. That's why I don't say my students, and I correct our trainers when they say he's my student. No, he's our students. It's the Monster Factory students. It is never going to be Danny Cage's Monster Factory. It's always going to be Larry Sharp's Monster Factory. Same way Dave Thomas doesn't have to flip the hamburgers. They're always going to be Wendy's hamburgers. That's the way it is.
Yeah. That's a name that don't get mentioned hardly enough anymore these days, but...
Yeah.
But, I actually wanted to say, Mr. Cage, that we, on behalf of myself, Austin, and Nate tonight, we thank you for hanging with us for the full hour. You definitely, as Nate put it before you came back on, you gave us that Harvard education for free here on air. So I hope those who are listening were educated enough to know what you're looking for, and if they're coming to you, so they don't come in and be like, well, I heard you on air, but I still don't get it. No, but they know. They should know. Well, they should know the whole deal.
They should know.
And also, one last thing is, how can they follow you on your social media? I believe that you have one for your Monster Factory and for yourself. If they have one, they want to keep up with what's going on.
Yep, I handled our Twitter, which is the number 4 Monster Factory, at 4 Monster Factory, because there's so many Monster Factories out there that the only one left was the number 4 Monster Factory. And then mine is crap, the number 4, and face, crap for face, because there was no Danny Cages left. And I was not going to be Danny Cage 894, so I was like, screw it, I'll be crap for face. So that's that.
Awesome. Well, we thank you so much for staying on here with us tonight for the full hour and giving us a good education on what it is, what you guys are really all about. And somewhere down the line, I don't know, maybe later this year, possibly early part of next year, would you be opposed to coming back or would you like to come back for a part 2?
Absolutely. Do it. Book it.
All righty then, sir. We thank you again, and we hope you enjoy your night.
Okay.
You got it, brother. Thanks, guys.
All right.
All right, Danny.
That was an education and a half, guys. I didn't know much about them, but I can say I have a whole new outlook and respect for what they do. I didn't know a whole lot about them at all, I'll be honest with you.
And then that's what I said earlier. I'm like, I don't know, much into detail about his entire life, but I mean, knowing just, more than I did beforehand, I really just, respect everything he's done, everything he had to go through, and all the, sacrifice he had to make in order to make it where he is today.
Yeah, I didn't know a whole lot about the Monster Factory besides, those old ads back in PWI or The Wrestler, growing up. But it's a name that if you're a wrestling fan, and it was really cool to talk to Danny. And, like I said, the thing I got the most was that he deals in respect and honesty, and he got that with Larry, and he's giving that to his students now. So big up to Danny and the Monster Factory.
I couldn't have said it better myself. We're going to get a few minutes here, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion on the craziness of Monday Night Raw. The Hulkster's birthday, brother. I mean, that was a theme, but it took you every which way preparing for SummerSlam. What do you think, Austin?
I couldn't believe that what is it, Brie Bella was arrested, That happened to Stephanie a couple weeks ago, and so I guess she had to get her just due, which she probably did, and with that, what's her name, Megan something, that's having an affair supposedly with Daniel Bryan. Daniel, why?
Is she related to Claire Lynch by chance?
I swear to God,
Megan
that's her cousin. But in some
Sorry,
details
I had to throw that in there.
That's actually a graduate of Lance Storm's Wrestling Academy. Megan,
oh, really?
I can't remember her last name. Yeah, really, I found that out last night.
Okay.
Really cool. Yeah, she's a graduate from Lance Storm. But like I'm saying, she reminds me of the cousin of, maybe she is the legitimate cousin of Claire Lynch.
And what did you think about all that fiasco? I mean, I know they definitely try to keep it interesting, but I don't really think they needed the extra added, he's having an affair thing. Their rivalry was already enough, I thought.
Like, I think what we saw last week with the whole deal with Stephanie pedigreeing both of the Bellas, that probably should have been the image on the Go Home show that we got last night on Raw. Because I thought that was a really cool segment. Last night, Stephanie's always great on the mic, but, yeah, as a TNA fan, this brought back instant memories to Claire Lynch, and those aren't good memories. So, I could have done without that particular aspect of the segment, especially, I mean, if you're going to do the whole mistress angle, you don't want to do it the week before. You know what I mean? At least with Claire Lynch, they gave us a couple weeks and months of the story.
Yeah,
I don't think we're done at SummerSlam with these guys. I really, these ladies here, I think it's going to go on, and dare I say, probably to maybe Night of Champions. Not saying that they're champions right now, but I mean, this rivalry is far from over. I don't see it ending anytime soon.
Or maybe a Hell in a Cell match between Stephanie and Brie Bella.
I would never think that they would put females in those type of matches, but I don't see at this point any two that would be better suited for that match. As far as the Divas go, excuse me.
And one thing I'm really
to see where they go with that.
I mean, another thing that's going to be happening at SummerSlam this Sunday that I'm really looking forward to, and I know probably all of you are as well, is Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose.
That's another one that I don't think we'll see the end of until one of the two are out for a while. They put them out for good, and they decide some other path for them. I've mentioned this to Austin before. I believe Dean Ambrose really gives me memories of the late Brian Pillman. The crazy character, it suits him.
Yeah, I really like Ambrose. He's a baby face, but he's not a quote-unquote good guy. I like that he has an edge about him. I like that he's a little bit crazy. He's he's unhinged, if you will, but I think I was talking on, I think it was Friday Night Warfare, when we were talking about how all three members of the Shield have kind of benefited from the split, and that's a very rare thing to do. I mean, you got Roman Reigns in this big program with the Viper, and then you got Rollins and Ambrose, and I think, all three guys can benefit and become stars.
Without a doubt. And, what I was going to say about, who was it? Yeah, Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose is crazy. I love it. I just love his personality and how he just I don't know, just the way he moves and everything about him I think is just so unique. Same with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, who, like Nate said, have benefited from the Shield splitting up quite some time ago. And Roman Reigns is heading into a match against Randy Orton, which I am highly anticipating because I know those two can definitely put on one hell of a match.
I will say though,
I got to ask
Roman
you guys
Reigns,
a question though. We'll after this, of course, but I'll wait. I'm cutting in too soon. I'm sorry, Austin. Go for it. We were talking about Randy Orton and Roman Reigns, and I cut you off too, Nate. So go ahead. I'm going to shut up for a minute and let you guys talk.
I was just going to say real quick with Roman Reigns, I love the intensity. I think he has all the makings of a future world champion, but he doesn't need to talk. Not the strongest promo, and what it was the catchphrase he was trying to get over on Monday night, believe that. I don't believe. I don't believe. I don't believe Roman.
That's a good point. Some are just a better strong silent type, as Brock obviously is a strong silent type, for an example. So he's got Heyman, who delivers, spot on promos like nobody can today. Maybe that's what's lacking with Roman Reigns. Maybe they always plan a huge heel turn at SummerSlam from over the years that I've seen. Maybe he's the heel turn that they're going to go with. Maybe not. Who's to say?
No,
it'd be surprising.
I see Roman Reigns as a guy who, and like you said, there's very few people who can kind of get away with not saying anything. Brock Lesnar is one of those guys because he does all his talking in the ring when he's wrestling, and I think Roman Reigns could be somewhat like that. I'm not comparing him to Brock Lesnar, but I'm saying he can be a silent rage. Not comparing him to Andy Levine either, but
I didn't think about that one.
But that makes sense, right? For Roman Reigns to be that way, he doesn't have to say much.
Yeah, and now what I was alluding to earlier is I got to ask you guys, what do you think about the Hulkster's birthday party, brother? All the special guests coming in. I didn't expect to see Paul Orndorff. Piper, yes. Flair, maybe. Nash, I was going to call him Hash and Hall. Hello, Nash and Hall. Now, they kind of spilled the beans even before Raw, which, whatever. But it was good to see him. Hall, and he looked great. He looked much better than he has looked in years. Does that mean that it could allude to something further? Maybe. But for what it was, I enjoyed it. The confrontation with Brock and everything.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I was expecting Sting to walk out after John Cena with Brock Lesnar ran through the ring and looked like he was staring down everybody and looked like he was about to attack Hulk Hogan at one point or attack every single person in the ring. And then John Cena rushed out. I was hoping to God that Sting music just hit and he stood right by John Cena, like the lights went off and he was just there. That would have been a moment. But I know they're saving that Sting moment somewhere in the future, guys. It's going to be here. And Sting is going to make his presence known, whether it's from the rafters or it's in the ring. It's going to be great.
And most people were anticipating that Sting would probably appear. What did you think, Nate?
I cannot wait for Sting, but the Hogan birthday party, I just thought it was funny just to watch how the legends interacted because to me, Mr. Wonderful stole the show. He took his time getting down to the ring, got the kisses from the girls, and then if you noticed, when Brock got in the ring, Orndorff was right over Hogan's shoulder, and he kept talking to him, and Heyman and Hogan just kept ignoring Mr. Wonderful, but he was going to get his 5 minutes of fame.
Yes.
He wasn't even singing happy birthday. He was just standing there with his mustache looking all wonderful.
No, and it's not a mustache. It's a porn stash.
Yeah.
Really?
That's an old reference they call. Never mind. I'm not going to get into that. It's a wrestling radio show, so I'm going to shut up now. But what I thought was interesting about that was how Brock stepped up to Piper. Piper didn't back down. He got right on his face and be like, you know what, if I was 30 years younger, I'd whoop your ass, and I'd probably still do it now.
Poke him in his eye.
Piper is forever going to be known as a rebel, the original badass, if you will, that gave Vince more gray hairs than probably anybody that ever came after him. But and then Flair, and then the one, like you said, I'll go with what you said, Nate, that Orndorff, he never backed down. He stayed put. He was not intimidated by Brock.
Yeah, but you talk about Piper. They were in Portland, Oregon, which is, Roddy's old stomping ground. So I thought maybe they would have done a little bit more with them last night.
I would have liked it, and you could tell he was looking away. Piper was looking away. He's like, ooh, they're paying me to be nice. I'm going to be nice. Otherwise, I'm going to knock him out. Piper don't take no crap. He never has, and he never will.
And I don't know about you guys. I don't know if you've seen the last moments on the WWE Network. They had it the Raw after show, yes. And they brought out Hulk Hogan's birthday cake. And instead of putting, I don't know his actual age, guess what numbers they put? You're probably familiar with it after these past weeks, but 999 was put on his birthday cake. They lit it up and he blew it out. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, Jesus, man. And I can't even tell you, and personally, and I just think it's so cool how I mentioned this last night after Raw, how I guess smart WWE is for doing this. I guess to get the $9.99 thing out by the WWE Network, and rather than promoting it themselves, by themselves, they get a bunch of everybody to start chanting it, making it kind of like a funny thing. They're passing it around to their friends, and their friends pass it around to their friends, and so on and so forth. I just think it's really working well, if that's their plan.
I think that this $9.99 deal that they're trying to do is going to be almost as annoying as a what, and they still do that to this day.
The WWE,
but I get what they're doing. I get the idea behind it. So I understand. They want to make sure before they hit the end of 2014 that they hit their 1 million subscribers, and you know what? Maybe expanding to the UK and so forth is going to help them do that. Maybe not. Only time will tell.
Well, it's going to help them without a doubt.
But
they're expanding to over 120 different countries.
Oh yeah. But we want to talk about what we got coming up next week. We got coming up the one and only Raymond Rowe. Tell us a little bit about Raymond Rowe for those who don't know.
Yeah, Raymond Rowe, Ring of Honor superstar, one half of the tag team with Hanson. They're called War Machine, Ring of Honor's tag team, and they've been just recently, maybe like a month ago, just hitting the scene on Ring of Honor and making a name for themselves, getting in all the main events, wrestling against the Briscoes, Daniels and Kazarian, Red Dragon. They've been around, and they're going to continue to grow and become stronger than ever, and they're dominant. Raymond Rowe is going to become a future ROH World Champion if he plays his cards right. He is such an awesome guy and such an awesome wrestler, and I just cannot wait to speak with him next week.
Yes, sir. And, well, for those of you guys who didn't hear, Pro Wrestling Historical Society last Sunday night, Terry ran solo for the night, but he did. You know what? He did a great job. Greg called in and apologized for having to miss, but overall, Terry was the star of the show. He talked about Mid-Atlantic and all the different things he got to see and experience and meet, the people he got to meet and so forth. And, talking to Scott and Mark, right? Yeah. Anyways, sorry, lost my train of thought for a second. It was a great show for those of you guys who appreciate the history of professional wrestling. And when I mean history, I mean pre-1990s, pre-1980s, and probably even further back. It just depends on what they feel like talking about, because they had a conversation going a few weeks ago on the AWA. And that one just kind of blew me away because of so much inside information that they shared that most probably don't even know about. So if you're a fan of the history of professional wrestling, you got to check this show out. It's on. We have it on twice a month, every other Sunday. They were on this past Sunday. They'll be back in about 2 weeks, and we'll continue on with some great things that they're doing. Other than that, we had a great show tonight. Make sure you guys keep following us on our social media. You can check out all of our social media on pipebombradio.weebly.com. Content gets updated daily, sometimes twice a day. Austin's a busy man. We definitely have some great guests lined up for the fall season. We're going into the fall now, very soon here. In fact, we're going to wrap up August here It's going a lot faster than I ever thought. This summer has came and gone so fast.
You didn't say that twice. I cannot even believe, and it seems like yesterday we were just speaking to Blackjack Morgan and Susan Green on the first episode of Pipebomb Radio in 2014, and it's already halfway done. I mean, there's only a few more months until December, until January. I mean, and I'm excited for the fall, obviously. I mean, if you live in Louisiana, you're always excited for the fall.
And something that Austin brought to my attention, I have to bring this up, Austin, because you reminded me of this, and I never even gave it much thought, but until you told me anyways. But we are also approaching our 100th episode, if you can believe that.
Actually, yeah.
Did we surpass it? Don't tell me we surpassed it.
It might actually be in 2 weeks. I wasn't keeping track of it as of the last few weeks. And I think it's actually either next weekend or the week after. So, you know, or maybe this one. Maybe this is the 100th episode. Maybe it's.
We'll have to go back and do a recount, because now you got me wondering if we might have surpassed it. But you know, we'll find out, and whatever we do, if we surpass it, we'll still do a little celebration to commemorate the 100th episode. Hey, I'm proud of that. Hey, who'd have thought we made it to 50? But we did.
Well, speaking of the number 100, I want to actually send a very special shout out to Nate here on the line. Happy birthday! He actually had his birthday this past week. I'm not saying you're 100 years old, but I was
gonna say, where you going with
that?
It
dealt with numbers. I guess I was. I don't know exactly how old you're, but I mean, at least it's a number, and that deals with birthdays. So, happy birthday!
Wow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, if I'm 100, man, I'm holding up pretty well. But no, I just turned 37 on the 11th. Me and the Hulkster share a birthday, brother. So,
all right.
Thanks for everybody. Hit me up on Twitter and Facebook, and of course the Pipebomb Radio family, and this is gonna be a good year for me.
And you know, if you guys actually haven't been keeping up, there has been something going around social media. I got to throw it in there because it's something that's worthwhile to invest in if you can. For the Ivan Koloff documentary, our former guest Michael Elliott's working on a new documentary for Ivan Koloff, and if you're able to, it's a Kickstarter. It's floating around, so you can't miss it. You can't really miss it because it's been going on every social media that I can think of. To get involved, donate a little bit, help this get done, because Mr. Elliott's done some phenomenal work. There I go using phenomenal on prior documentaries, and it's worth the investment in my opinion. If you get to invest a little bit, $5-10, however much is, all the way up to like $1,000, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. And one more thing I actually want to mention is Robin Williams passed away, and I know this doesn't have much to that comparison I'm doing tonight. But Robin Williams actually passed away last night, and I was super shocked when I heard. One of the greatest actors of all time, and even quite the wrestler when he was young. Rest in peace, Robin Williams, without a doubt.
Nanu. Nobody would know that one unless you're old enough like I am, and Nate probably remembers that because you're around my age. So.
Yep.
Yeah. Mork and Mindy.
But
those of who most remember him for would be like Aladdin, Mrs. Doubtfire,
Good Will Hunting,
Jack. Definitely one of the more talented and gifted comedians / actors that have come in this generation. And take into consideration, guys, depression is something you don't mess with. It's not something that can be. When you notice something like that, pay attention to it. And it's not something to scoff at because it's a real illness. It's something that it's taken lives. And Mr. Williams is not the first. But he definitely will be missed. His legacy will continue to live on forever.
Absolutely. Anybody that, knows me and knows kind of my recent history or has listened to the Kings of Sport podcast, I've battled with depression in my past, and it's something that you can't see on the outside. Sometimes the happiest people are the people that are dealing with some of the most difficult times emotionally, and it's just a shame that he didn't see any other way out. But I would say he will be missed, and my prayers go out to his family. But if there is a silver lining in this whole thing, maybe it's that people can say, "Wow, somebody that was that funny and that amazing and was that successful, if he could have problems with depression, what about, my neighbor? What about my classmate? What about this man over here that nobody talks to? The hashtag last night on Twitter was like, depression is no joke, and it's not. So maybe the one good thing that can come of this is people start taking a different look at mental health and realizing that it is a disease. It's just as real as cancer or any other sickness out there.
No doubt about that. And we will definitely, we send our heartfelt condolences to his daughter Zelda and his wife. And I just dig that name, by the way. I just love that he named her that. That's pretty cool. But definitely his family is in our prayers and our thoughts. And what can I say? You know what? If you're ever in the mood for a good laugh, put on one of the Robin Williams movies. You're in for a treat. And tune in next Tuesday night for Raymond Rowe, guys. On behalf of all of us here at Pipebomb Radio, Nate, Austin, and myself, this is Felix signing off, saying keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. Good night, everybody. Good night, guys.
Bye, man.
All right.
Good night, Nate.
Night, fellas.